Right, hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of Vox Res. In this episode we're going to clean up the old filthy gearbox, ready to put back on the new engine or replacement engine, and maybe even give the engine bay of the Astra, which has now got nothing in it, a bit of a clean. So as you can see, it's in absolute filthy state, this gearbox. I suppose it's 100 and whatever it is, 122,000 miles worth of dirt, plus what was it, 12 years old, so it's a little bit caked in mess. Yeah, don't really have to be fussy with it, but I just think cleaning it up a little bit will make it easier when we're putting it back in to the car when it's attached to the engine. Also going to change this slave cylinder inside. So it doesn't feel too bad, a little bit of slack in there I think, but I'm going to be unbolting this, like changing this and the pipe. I think that all comes with the new one. I think about 45 quid. It's hardly worth worrying about when you've got all the engine and gearbox out like this. It's a bit of a false economy not to change it. So I'm going to give it a quick pressure wash. I'm going to blocked up the pipe there already. Don't really know why, because I'm going to change this, so a bit pointless really, but I will be blocking up the shaft positions here where the drive shafts are going, and the one on the other side, because we don't really want to get it full of water. Luckily it's now stopped leaking oil. As you can see, I've had a bit of a spillage when we took the engine out. Those dark patches on my drive are oil stains with sand on them, but never mind, eh? Also, that's the reversing light switch there, so we want to get that bunged up with some tissue, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, give it a quick wash down, and I'll show you the end result. Right, quick brush down with some degreaser and a pressure wash, and I think you'll agree that looks a lot better. The idea wasn't to make it look mint, because obviously it doesn't. The idea was to get it a bit cleaner to handle, so it's a little bit more pleasant to put back in. Also cleaned it inside here, inside the bell housing. Obviously still got a little bit of water now. I'll let it dry out. Was thinking of giving this back end a bit of a paint here, because that's actually steel and it's quite pitted and rusted. I think you can see the corrosion and stuff on there. So I might give that a quick coat of hammerite or something, or some black satin or something, just to protect it a bit, not necessarily to make it look nice. And maybe, I think, I'm not sure if that panel under there, I don't know if you can see that, it's not too bad, but I'm not sure if that's aluminium or steel as well. I'll have a check on that. If it's steel, I'll probably put a bit of a coat of paint on that. So that's that done. So the next thing to do, got some little jobs. I've looked and looked online, and I cannot get this engine mount out. The Haynes manual says undo those bolts and it'll pull out. Look at the images of it, right on the back of it, inside the bit that's buried in the chassis leg, it looks like there's a thread on it, but I can't see how to get to that thread. There is a little slot in the wheel arch under here. Oh, where are we? Don't know if you can see that. Oh yeah, you can there, but I can't see anything in there. I've shone a torch in there and can't see it, so not too sure what to do about that. It doesn't have to come off. I just thought it'd make it a lot easier to get the engine back in. It certainly would have made it easier to get it out, but I might just bolt it back in position and leave it. I was thinking of giving this engine bay a clean up, but then I thought my drive slopes down towards the garage. I don't know if I want all that dirt and corruption out of there just running down my already dirty drive and into the garage. You're not going to see it. I might give the inner wings a bit of a clean up while everything's out. That side you can't really get to, and also I thought there's a lot of electrical connectors and plugs, so do I really want to go hosing down and pressure washing in here? No, not really. So if I feel like it, I might give it a quick wipe down inside. So that's that in here. So the other little job is, if you remember, I had a hell of a trouble getting that mount off gearbox. Sorry, the gearbox mechanism, gearbox gear change mechanism, that's the word I'm looking for. And in the end I had to destroy it, because on top of here goes a little clip. And you're supposed to just slide this thing off, and would it slide this end? Well, you can't see it, it was on the gearbox, it was on a pin. Can we see the pin here? Yeah. So it was on here, mounted on there. You can see that's nice and shiny and clean. Little groove in there for the clip to go in to hold it, stop it sliding off. Obviously it pivots on that one. So that's kept nice and clean with the gear changes. However, on this one, it doesn't pivot. It's just a support, and I could not get that off. So, funny enough, the nice man from Amazon has just brought me some little cut-off wheels. Got these little Dremel cut-off wheels. Just been delivered from Amazon. I've used these before for cutting bolts down and things. They're really good. They're heavy-duty ones, as you can see on the packet. I'm not saying you can cut sort of 6-inch steel bolts with them or anything, but you know, I've cut some fairly hefty bolts with them. They seem to do the trick. So my plan is, I don't know whether I can do it in situ, is to split this shaft with this rubber and get the rest of this rubber off and split this outer piece off, and hopefully get it apart. Alternatively, down there, which I couldn't get to with a spanner or anything, is 4 bolts holding this entire bracket on. So I might take those off and take the whole bracket off, and then I can put it in a vise and work on it more comfortably. So I think really that's about it in the engine bay. So there's a couple of little jobs we need to do on the engine. So this is obviously the replacement one. They're both sitting here in the garage on the trolley now. Got them on there the other night. What I want to do is, I've decided, I might do that in a minute actually, is take this clutch off, have a look at the condition of that clutch, and also the condition of the flywheel, and see if it's any better or worse than the one that's on there, because obviously that clutch there had destroyed itself. So I don't really want to use a damaged flywheel, so I might just whip the clutch off there, because I haven't torqued these bolts down yet. Take that off, take this old clutch off of this one and have a look, see what condition the flywheels will, compare the two. If this one looks a lot better than this one, maybe we'll swap the flywheels over, but I think you then need new flywheel bolts. Bit of a pain, but we'll see how we get on with that. So the other thing is, this engine, I think it's been standing outside quite a lot. It's got a lot of rust, like this bracket, if you look at the state of that. Whereas the one on my engine is really pretty. Well, it's not really pretty, but it's nicer looking than that one. So I might swap things over like that, make it look a bit tidier before I put it in. I've actually bought, I don't know if you can see these in here, it's like a cable tie on a little push fit thing. Is there one that's hanging out somewhere? Can't see one, but I bought a load of those, bought 100 of 2 different sizes, and you can see it better in there. Again, good old Amazon, but just so I can replace this, so I can just cut these all off, take the bracket off, put the bracket off the other engine back on, and put the cable ties on. A little bit more work, but I think that might be a weekend job when I've got the engine actually out on the drive again. I can't be bothered to lug them right out now. So the other thing we need to do, another little job, is this lead down here, if you remember, where is it, has been ripped off. So the connector's ripped off that, and what the other wire is in the end there. So that is part of the engine wiring loom. Now, as you can see, the engine wiring loom is quite complicated. There's this bit here that goes off to the fuel injectors. There's main battery connections. There's all the sensors on the engine are all in that one wiring loom, which comes out of that one big plug somewhere. I don't know where that's gone now, but there's a huge plug. Goes in the top of the ECU. I don't really want to take all that off just for the sake of one connector. So what that connector's for is for the O2 sensor, one of the O2 sensors in the engine, or in the exhaust pipe in the back part of the exhaust. In fact, I can show you where that is. Let's have a wander over here. So it's this sensor here. in the back of the exhaust. There's another one in the manifold that comes up here, and there's that one there, and that plugs in to a connector on that lead that's broken off. So what I'm going to do with that one is save ripping all this wiring loom out just for the sake of one connector, is, if I can find it, there he is, that's the exact same one, oops, the exact same connector that was on the old engine. So I'm just going to cut this connector off. Sorry, this is on the old engine. I'm going to cut this connector off and solder it on, and put some heat shrink sleeving on it, tape it all up to replace that one that's been ripped off down there. I'm going to screw the old rocker cover back on there just with a couple of screws. Probably won't even bother with a gasket, just to connect, protect the valve gear while we lift this engine on. Might swap out the lifting brackets here as well. That one we said we were going to do, that one's rusty as anything. Just swap them out, make them a bit nicer. I did say about this bolt here, I can't twist it with my fingers now, but that is free, that will come out now. Had to cut that off with a Dremel, same one as broke off in the existing engine, the original engine, which is that one there. Oops, that's that bolt there. And I think the reason they corrode in so much is they're the only ones, if we can get down here, I don't know if you can see it, they go there, where are we, there, into an open hole. So that's the end of the thread, I can feel there. So obviously all dirt, water, moisture, rust, heat all gets up in there and seizes these bolts on if the cover hasn't been off for a while. So I think that's why that particular one does what it does. The rest of them all go into blind holes. So that one there, and one on the other side down there, and the others that are up underneath there wiring loom, they go all into blind holes, so obviously they don't get any dirt coming up underneath them. So it's enough rabbiting on from me. I think I'll try and get on with something. I don't know what, so many little things to do and not enough time to do them, but anyway, let's get something done. So a couple of reasonably good things have happened. First one is I found my 11mm socket, which I could not find the other day. It was out of that set. Couldn't find it anywhere. It was on the end of my torque wrench. So found that, which is good. Also, I've just taken the clutch off of the old engine, so you can see this one's in a bit better condition than the other one was that we took off the replacement engine. It's got quite a bit of meat left on it there. However, if you look closely, it is getting quite close to the rivets. In fact, it looks like it's cracking where that one is it? Yeah, I think there's a little crack in there. The patterns, like the little spiral patterns, I fear have worn quite a lot on the outer edges. Same on that side, that's really worn even worse there. So it was getting close to needing a clutch replacement anyway, the original car, which I suppose for 122,000 miles is probably about right, but that one hasn't been abused too much, or hasn't disintegrated like the other one. No idea why that did that. Also, looking at the flywheel, you can see that in there, it looks pretty much the same condition wise as the one on the other engine does, so I haven't bothered taking the clutch off there. I think I'm just going to go with it. It's just another 2 or 3 hours work for nothing really, just well, a few minutes work to inspect it, but if I do decide to change it, I don't think there's anything in it. They don't really wear out, these solid flywheels. The ones you do have to worry about are the dual mass flywheels on the modern diesel engines. Don't tend to have them so much on petrol engines. Not saying they don't have them at all. Don't really know, to be honest. But yeah, that's just a solid flywheel. It looks all right. That one looks all right. So I'm just going to leave them as they are, I think. Oh yeah, and the second really good thing I noticed, I forgot to show you earlier. I lost one of the little spring clips, and I spotted it now. It's down there, right down there. So I'm going to see if I can fish him out with something. I don't know if it's a steel clip or whether it's an aluminium one, but I'm going to try my little magnet on a stick first. Hey, we got him. There he is on the end there. So let's just, I'll show you what these do while I'm at it, because I don't think I showed you too much detail. So on top of these posts, not the one I've got to get off in there, mounts the gearbox mounting, and that little clip clips on there and holds the gear change mechanism on. We can look in that in a little bit more detail when we come to put it all back together. So the next little job I decided to do was try and get this off. I put some mole grips on it, it wouldn't shift. So I think I'm going to have to go down the Dremel it off route, but I needed to get the bracket off first to do that. I decided, because I didn't really want to be crawling on the floor in here. So as you can see, right down there are some bolts, which you can't get a socket on, not even the electric ratchet. I could just about get a ratchet on the front too, but I've got this little thing that I remember I made up ages ago. So what this is a piece of an Allen key that I cut off. So it's got the hex head on that end, and I ground it square-ish on that end, and that will just fit into a socket. And then on that, I've got a set of these. Things are invaluable. I highly recommend you invest in a set of these. They're ratchet spanners, and they've also got a flexible head on them, which is great. So that up me up, it's in the undo position, and that will fit over there, he says. Trying to do this one-handed because I've got the camera in the other hand. There we go. So what you can do is, let me put that on there for a minute. I've cracked these off now, but you can drop that on the bolt like that, and you can get your little ratchet spanner on top, he says, hopefully. I'll pick one that I actually can't get it on. Let's move it over to the other side. And then I've now got a spanner on that I can use to undo it and do it up. It's brilliant. So like I say, I've cracked those both off. Got two of them out already. Just going to do these others by hand. They weren't in very tight anyway, so that's the one out. Put them with the others. And that one just needs to support the bracket. Have to excuse my arms, I don't know what I've done to them, cut them up really, or grazed them all on something on the car on Monday when it was really hot, and they've all come up a little bit horrible, like that, and the worst one was in there. I think it was partly to do with the heat and brake dust and all sorts of horrible stuff. So I've now got this bracket off, and as you can see, that is really mashed up in there. And we've got to try and get that outer piece. You can see that's the outer piece there, that's the inner piece. That's got to come off of there. So that's going to be fun. But we'll give that a whirl. Okay, so having got that bracket off, what I've done, it's got the little Dremel with the little cut-off wheels that just arrived this evening. And I have split, this is the collar that went over this pin, like, you get the idea, like so. Showed you that on there earlier. So what I've done is I've had to split it down both sides, then hit it with a hammer, or get a screwdriver down in the groove and hit it with a hammer to split it off. And you can see how corroded that aluminium piece is, because it hasn't been moving on that pin, and that's why that wouldn't come off. That's the other half of it, and that's why that was seized onto this pin. So you can see the corrosion on here now. There we go, getting the front. Now I've nicked the pin with the Dremel a little bit on one side, but give that a good clean up with some emery paper or some sandpaper or something, and that'll be good to go back on the car. Right, so the next job to do is to fix this connector. So I've already stripped the ends of this cable back and tinned them with a soldering iron. If you notice, I've cut one a little bit shorter than the other to make an offset joint, so the two joints don't line up. It's just something I do, just makes things a little bit neater. We come to tape them up. So I've already cut the connector off of the old engine, so I'm just going to prepare the ends on that now. Just strip those back a little bit. Give them a twist, take that one back a little bit more. So just tinning the joint is just a little bit of solder and just covering the wire with a thin coating of solder. What you should always try and do is heat up the wire when you're soldering, don't mount the solder onto the wire. Heat up the wire that you're soldering, and then so you heat the wire up and then mount the solder onto the wire, rather than mount the solder with the soldering iron and let it drip onto the wire itself. Just a little tip there. So now you should be able to see, get the solder out of the way, but these will line up quite nicely. I'll probably just trim them down a little bit. Down to the same length, and you'll see we get a nice staggered joint there. But what I'm also going to do is put a couple of pieces of this heat shrink sleeving over. Getting a bit short on this actually, so to invest in some more. A couple of pieces of that. Over the brown there, tuck him up out of the way if we can. And all you do is just warm one of the wires up, warm both the wires up together. Particularly brilliant, like that. There we go, and that's now joined onto there with heat shrink sleeving that we can put over, and another bit of sleeving over the blue wire, and straightened out so it'll line up a little bit better. It's always easier doing the first one, but the second one you just a little bit trickier. I'll probably burn my finger, set it out of the gloves or something. There we go, those two are mounted together. Heat shrink sleeving over there. I've just got my hot air gun here. A lot of people I see do this with soldering irons, but I just don't like doing it with soldering iron. You end up with bits of solder all over here, and you could end up melting the wires or something. So if you've got the proper kit, I'm just going to move that out of the way because we need that. So yeah, just hot air gun. There we go, one joint, one new connector or second hand connector fitted. I'll probably just put a bit of tape or something over the end of that before we put it on the car, but that's another little job done.